My interest actually didn't start with cars. My interest started with toys, snowmobiles, dirt bikes, motorcycles. I was too young to have a license, and my dad had a bunch of kind of junk laying around, and I decided if I wanted to have something to play with, we didn't have a crap ton of money, so I decided if I wanted to have something to play with, my only way to do that was to begin fixing the stuff that was laying around. My first project was a little mini bike that I got running, and I moved on from there to snowmobiles and ATVs. Cars came about once I got close to having my license. Like everybody else, I needed a set of wheels. I wasn't rich. I worked at a local farm for minimum wage, and we had an old farm truck. It was a '73 Chevy four-wheel drive half-ton pickup, and my father was trying to sell it. He wanted $1,500 for it or something, and I convinced him that he should give it to me instead. It needed a ton of work, so I started working. My senior year in high school, I needed to get a class ring, which I've long since lost, but I wanted to get mine in auto mechanics, and I thought my mother was going to fall over because she said, you're not really interested in auto mechanics, you want to go to engineering school. And I said, yeah, but everything else I do has to do with cars. So I got the class ring that said auto mechanics and went to engineering school. After I got done engineering school, I kind of was looking for work. The job that came my way was Saturn of Portsmouth. My brother-in-law was a tech there, and he called me and said they were looking for somebody to change oil. And I said, well, I have my tools, I've got the experience to do it. Why not, why not cars full time? Not that I hadn't worked on cars a lot, because I had, but I've never been in a dealership. So I went down to, got the interview, I was offered the job, I took it, and I started working as a technician at Saturn of Portsmouth, and we sold exclusively Saturn cars and sport utility vehicles. I worked there for, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years, something like that, before I decided to move on to teaching. The tech center that I worked at was called the Seacoast School of Technology. I started there in 2004, September of 2004. The day before I was a teacher, I was a technician in a dealership working on cars every day. I rolled my toolbox out of Saturn on Friday. I was in a classroom on Monday, and spent a lot of time learning the trade. I worked there for 8 years before I came here. I happened to know the previous auto tech teacher pretty well, Kevin Vachon, and I knew his retirement was coming up, so just being so close to home compared to Exeter, which was an hour drive, I was kind of keeping my ears open for when he was due to retire. And when he finally told me that it was going to be his last year, I basically started watching the internet for the job posting. And once that came up, then I struggled for about a month whether or not I should apply. And they took the posting down and I gave up, and then they put the posting back up, and I finally decided to go ahead and apply. We've done so many improvements here to the shop. I would say the biggest, probably the most impact, was the easiest to do, and that was just to declutter. I've taken 5 or 6 loads of scrap metal out of here, just trying to reopen some areas of the shop that we could use that were just filled with junk before, and that's made the shop much bigger. From there, I've worked pretty hard to modernize the equipment. A lot of the equipment here was pretty out of date when I started, and a lot of it still is, but we've improved a lot. We've got one new lift that we replaced this year because the lift that was there before was getting pretty worn and unsafe, so we bought a new one and got that installed. We're getting some new technology in terms of computers. Of course, we got a new strut compressor. I got a new toolbox this year, which is helping with the organization factor a ton because the tools were everywhere before. And another big thing that I think is really key is, in the past, the tools that students had access to were on a big rolling triangular tool board, and there wasn't a ton of them available. I was able to get 5 identical small toolboxes that the students are able to get assigned to them in groups of 2 or 3, and they each have an identical set of tools. So if you need a 10mm wrench, you don't have to go and see that the one on the board is missing and wait and see who has it and steal it. You have another copy, you have another toolbox at your disposal. And I think that's helped efficiency a ton. It's made the class a lot better. Opportunities, well, obviously learning is always an opportunity, and hopefully that's the biggest thing. I like to make sure that students have the ability to problem solve, and really just have the chance to think their way through something without me holding their hand. in terms of what we do as part of the curriculum. I think that's a real big part of it. But in addition to that, we do at least 2 competitions a year where students, if they do well enough, can be awarded scholarship money. We do the Skills USA automotive competition, and we do the Ford AAA automotive diagnostic competition. Between the 2 of those, there's quite a few $1,000s on the line for scholarships if we do well enough. Also trying to set up the opportunity for students to be able to take the class maybe on a dealership visit. They start to see the local shops, which hasn't been done a whole lot here. Hopefully to expand into job shadowing opportunities, possibly some clinical type of experiences where they might have an internship either during the school day or outside of the school day to be working in the shop and practice their craft as well. So lots of other opportunities, but that's the real key ones. This year I'm teaching Automotive Technology Year 1. I'm teaching Automotive Technology Year 2, which is the second half of the competencies of the Year 1 program. Together they form a CTE program in Automotive Technology, and you get a certificate if you do both of them. So it's basically a 2-year class. The other class that I teach currently is Car Care and Maintenance, which I call Driver's Ed on steroids, and it's a 9-week exploratory for students to kind of get an idea of simple things like how to change their oil, how to rotate their tires, how to maintain their car, and maybe a few things that will help them, when somebody goes to suggest an air filter, and they need to pay $30 for that, they understand why. The general public doesn't have a great understanding right now of what automotive technology is in 2015. People think of auto technicians as greasy car mechanics that use a bunch of hammers and wrenches, and I hope that the public begins to understand more that we're technicians, and we're technicians because we're taking all of those skills that a 1960s era auto tech might have in terms of being able to do the mechanical stuff, pry bars and wrenches and ratchets and pliers. And in today's day and age, cars have become so unbelievably high tech that we have to combine a whole nother skill set. We're really car engineers. The high quality technician in today's day and age not only can use those wrenches, but can also use a digital multimeter and be able to measure voltage down to 100th of a volt, current down to 100th of a milliamp, resistance down to 100th of an ohm. I use oscilloscopes in what I do. I use serial data line communications and computer networking in what I do because every car has a network of computers on it. We use chemistry, we use physics, we use all kinds of upper level math skills as technicians, when we start to understand things like emissions. Because everything that goes into your engine is going to come out burned. And if our emissions is 1% high in something like oxides of nitrogen or NOx, we've got to try and figure out what's going wrong inside that engine to make sure that that's fixed. In the 1960s, emissions testing didn't exist. Now we're worried about 0.1% above a threshold on some of these exhaust emissions, and it really takes somebody with a knowledge of math and science to be able to understand that. Auto technicians are pretty highly trained and highly skilled people. Those are the types of people that we need in our programs, and we need more and more people who are willing to do the work and get the education and become real high level. Like I say, I'm a mechanical engineer, and that has helped me be a technician, be a better technician, all through my career. And those skills are really useful. And we need to definitely educate people that, just because you're real smart doesn't mean there's not a place for you in automotive.